great pleasure to be here today at the ASHRAE meeting. This is the second time you have invited me, which means that I'm more or less accepted in what I say. So, ASHRAE is very important to me, although I'm not a member. But as a young researcher working in solar energy for many years, ASHRAE was the guiding light for me when I started working on solar water heaters, solar passive heating buildings, because it were standards quite fresh at the time, which we could refer. It made sense even to a non-engineer. I studied architecture, but I dealt a lot with engineers, so by the end, I was almost speaking the same language. And it was a point of reference. That means we could design, we had standards, and so forth. And also, it was a big teaching tool, because when we started working in when solar passive heating buildings became more popular, we had to organize our own standards. So ASHRAE, again, was a point of reference. So to me, ASHRAE is not something strange or an organization which I do not know. I have great respect, and I'm really happy that you're expanding. You have a global presence. When I started, there was no global presence. It was only the States, but we had good interaction with American colleagues. I was based in London at the time, and it was a good interaction. So I'm very happy to be in this very welcoming environment. Now, I'm going to take a more generalist view when it comes to buildings. I'd like to bring to you the broader picture in Southeast Europe. And through this broader picture, eventually you'll see the connection with buildings. Understanding the broader picture and the overall energy flows, and having a better knowledge of that, we see how buildings are more relevant, how energy is more relevant to buildings. Moving towards a clean environment and protecting biodiversity is, for me, far more important than decarbonization per se. And if we view buildings as part of this environment, we will understand why. Because buildings, to a large extent today, they're still dependent on centralized energy flows. Okay. Yeah. So, going to basics, when understanding energy demand is crucial in our effort to design more efficient, resilient, and adaptive energy systems, whether this concern entire regions, cities, or building complexes, condominiums, or single houses. Total energy demand increased across all regions over the last few years. Overall, 2% every year over the last few years, global energy demand is growing. And you may see that 2% is not a big number, but it's a really huge number when you're talking about global energy flows. Also, through that, you'll understand how the energy system I want to go back. Sorry. Fossil fuels continue to underpin, it's important to understand that. Fossil fuels continue to underpin the energy system, accounting for 87% of the energy mix. Just 3% lower than it was in 1973, which means that energy transition, as it is generally talked about currently, is not really happening, in spite of more than 10 trillion spent over the last few years. The main reason is that global energy demand continues to rise relentlessly. We're trying to decarbonize, to bring in clean systems. You're spending a lot of money, but the overall system does not change that easily. Meanwhile, carbon emissions increased around 1% in 2004, exceeding record level and so forth. Admittedly, because of our big input in terms of expanding renewables and cleaner energy and energy efficiency, we have avoided adding about 1.378 gigajoules of fossil fuels. So we are halting, in a way, the situation in terms of emissions, but we are not ahead of the curve. And here you see the total situation and how fossil fuels correspond to 87%. And 3% over 50 years is not good if we really want to reach targets like net zero 50 or net zero 60 in case of China. It will not be reached. But this is not the issue. The issue is that we have to continue to move. And you see here how energy demand is different for different geographic areas. And it reflects on the economic situation of the various regions. Africa very low, Asia much higher, Europe lower, USA much higher, and so on. So, over the past 5 years, global energy systems and international energy markets have been rocked by a series of seismic events, causing supply chain disruption, energy supply shortages, record energy prices, and increased volatility. It's a rather unique situation. We're having two moving wars right at the same time. Ukraine, Middle East, we have a fragile peace. The Middle East doesn't mean that the war has ended there. More, unfortunately, is coming. So, we have a situation where there is a lot of unease, a lot of volatility in markets, and this affects prices. I'm saying all that because we have to see the broader view. Renewables account, as I was saying earlier, growing share of primary energy demand, but they do not cover the gap between energy demand and supply. And here are some latest findings from the World Energy Outlook by the IEA, and it's different findings than it was last year, the year before, which show very clearly that decarbonization and transition is not moving that fast as it was expected. STEPS is the stated policies, and CPS are the current policies, and of course STEPS is more advanced towards decarbonization. But we see the results as we move over the next 15 years are not that impressive. This is the geographical area which are recently discovering, 14 countries, and Israel and Cyprus. And the green are the peripheral countries, and it's important to know what's happening there because there are energy flows between the core countries and the peripheral countries. Our institute is monitoring energy situation in those countries regularly. We have partners in each one of these countries. They participate in multi-client studies, they participate in research, and so forth. And we have set up this network of partners, and through that we carry our work in the region. We take a regional approach because we think that as economies and globalization takes hold, there's a lot of interaction, therefore it's, and half of the countries here, or 6 of the countries here are part of the EU, they belong to a certain bloc. So we think there's a lot of integration, and there's no point just in what's happening in one country without understanding what's happening in another country. To understand the energy situation, we take a view of the energy mix, including Turkey and excluding Turkey. And we see here between 2013 and 2023, there are minor changes when it comes to lowering the use of oil or gas or coal. Admittedly, coal is being phased gradually, but very gradually out, but at the same time we have higher use of petrol and a little higher use of gas. We have greater use of renewables as we move the energy mix. And if we go to the power generation mix, we have a much higher use of electricity. And sometimes people tell you that 50% of the electricity of energy is produced by renewables. That's nonsense. 50% of electricity is produced by renewables, but when it comes to the national part, I'm talking about Greece, they contribute about 20–21%. So it's a big struggle trying to bring higher renewables into the picture. But that's not bad. I mean, it was zero about 30–40 years ago. And I started working in solar energy. Our aspiration was not for solar and wind to take over. It was to be part of the system. And there were great difficulties because the utilities didn't want solar and wind. So a lot of battles have been won. We're in a very good situation when it comes to the differentiation of the energy mix, and much better when it comes to the electricity mix. You see here what's the situation in terms of installed capacity. There is a lot of variation. Turkey in our region is a big player in energy. You can see that installed capacity. Romania comes then, Greece, Turkey, Romania, a little Bulgaria. These are the main countries as far as electricity is concerned. Renewables have made a very determined entry into energy and electricity. And you see here the different proportions of countries. The top one, the orange one is Turkey, then it's Greece, then it's Romania, and so forth. And has been growing up impressively over the last 12 years. So, penetration of renewables into the system is a fact, but we're starting to have problems. And what are the problems? The more renewables enter into the system, we have more curtailments. And you see here that we have curtailments throughout the year. 5, 10, 20, even 25% of electricity produced from renewables is being thrown away. It is being thrown away by the operator, the independent power operator, because it has to ensure a balance into the system. Balancing the electricity system, I'll tell you, is far more difficult than balancing the energy system in a building, because you play it by second, nanosecond, and look what happened in Spain last June. We had a terrible blackout. And the blackout partly was because the system is based on renewables, which are intermittent, and you must have a lot better power electronics to be able to control this. You must have much better electricity interconnections and so forth. We studied the region through various publications, etc. One of the major publications is the Southeast Europe Energy Outlook, which will bring out every 3 or 4 years. The next one is coming out next month, and I will show you some of the results as far as energy demand. I started my presentation by talking energy demand, so I'm going now what's happening in terms of energy demand in the region. We have 3 scenarios. We have used mathematical modeling, obviously, to cover all 14 countries. And we have the WEM scenario, which is existing measures. We have the WAM scenario, additional measures, and we have the net zero scenario. And here you see some of these results. We have Turkey. We have divided the region in 3. Turkey, because Turkey contributes almost 50% of the energy of the entire region. And then we have the West Balkan countries, and then we have the countries in the EU, European Union, which is Slovenia, Croatia, Bulgaria, Romania, Greece, Cyprus. So these are the countries part of the EU. So the total, you see here the differences in terms of demand. In the one scenario, Turkey is going very high because of their strong demographics. Then we have the EU, which is rather flat because we have mature economies which are not developing very fast and very high. And then we have the West Balkan countries, the brown curve up, which is moving a little higher because their economies are still developing. We're talking about Albania, we're talking about Serbia, Montenegro, and so forth. And this is the other scenario, and this is the net zero scenario. So there are differences, and this is why we're studying the region to understand how the demand is differing, and because if you know demand, you can plan. And we come here to energy efficiency, and as the IEA shows very clearly, improving the energy efficiency can actually, can be achieved by lowering your primary energy intensity. So, and again, we have the three scenarios of the IEA, but the important thing is that it plays a very important role in demand, controlling demand, because if you manage to control demand, then you have lower needs, then you can plan with higher affordability. Energy efficiency in Southeast Europe, Mr. Turkoyas showed you very well what is the situation in Greece. We have to think of the other countries. I won't stick on that, that's very well explained in the presentation. And the important thing is that Greece, over the last 10, 12 years, has actually been implementing very, very thoroughly and consistently, and also adapting its energy efficiency programs on buildings, financed partly by EU grants and also through the banking sector. But I think the message has gone to the population, to inhabitants, that yes, unless you improve your house, then you will continue paying high bills. So I think this message has managed to go through. And this is where engineers, and this is where ASHRAE is becoming very relevant. Implementing energy efficiency measures in Europe, yes, we have the tools. We have the tools in buildings, and we have the tools for larger habitats. Yes, solar water heaters. Yes, we have solar photovoltaics. Yes, we have installation. Yes, we have automation. Yes, we have shading devices. We have all the tools. The question is putting this together and presenting them in a manner which is cost effective to the inhabitant and to the house owner. And finally, I'm going to energy security, because energy security matters. I'm talking about energy security in the broad sense, that is to be able to have continuous and guaranteed and competitive energy flows, whether this is petrol, whether this is gas, and of course electricity, because electricity is at the end what matters, because we're moving towards an all-electric world. And unless we have an all-electric world, we cannot have a more efficient world. But dependence is very high in Europe, as you can see here, with ups and downs. Now we're nearly 60% dependent. Europe is very dependent on importing oil, gas, and in some countries electricity. This is also in our region. As you see here, this is the dependence of the various countries in the region. Greece has one of the higher dependencies. Cyprus has total dependence, being an energy island and also an island. But Greece is now about 78%. 78% of our energy is imported. Turkey is the same, a little better, but we have problems. And the problems are that we rely entirely on imports, and therefore the cost of the energy is determined in the international market and is not dependent on you. And I will go, this is, you see how the pipelines in the regions are, the gas pipeline. Gas has become a very strategic energy fuel. So bringing gas to the various countries is very important. And the South Corridor has developed over the last few years. and this brings some kind of comfort. I will go straight to the concluding remarks. Energy demand and energy efficiency are closely interlinked, with higher efficiency systems leading to lower demand. Controlling demand enables one at regional, national, and local level to optimize the use of available resources, whether these are conventional or renewable. Availability and operability of energy resources at national and regional level influences energy security. And in today's uncertain and geopolitically unstable world, attaining high degree of energy security is paramount for the smooth operation of society and economic growth. Achieving a satisfactory level of energy security requires diversification of energy inputs and a high degree of indigenous energy production, whether fossil fuel, nuclear, or renewables. Buildings are important to this end because buildings have the ability to generate their own energy if they are designed properly. So this is very important because they fit into the bigger picture. And as energy transition is not really happening, I'm sorry I would disagree with the consensus that we are in energy transition. We are not in energy transition. We wish to go into energy transition, and we probably will go into energy transition. But right now, we're not yet there. So, the energy mix within a reasonable time horizon is not happening, but we're still relying on fossil fuels. So we have a lot of work ahead of us to be able to move to cleaner energy sources, which is a necessity, there's no doubt about it. And it is necessary in order to be able to move inevitably towards energy transition, at the same time maintaining economically competitive conditions. The question is, the big challenge is moving towards cleaner systems, but maintaining cost-competitive prices. So this is a big challenge. Consequently, lowering greenhouse gas emissions is becoming less of a priority, in my view, with energy security and price affordability taking priority in the foreseeable future. With 2 or 3 wars going on at the same time, obviously, each country is trying to shield itself, shield its energy system, trying to become autonomous as far as energy consumption is concerned and energy inputs. Consequently, improvement of energy efficiency at all levels is becoming a determining factor, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.